about it? The Monday after the spring game, Jim Scarcelli is here to talk about it all. And there he is on the screen and on your podcast, wherever you might be listening to it. Scar, who made his way down to stadium in Maine to the big house Saturday. And he was just telling me that as soon as the game started, the rain stopped and the skies opened up, and it was there for all to behold. Scar, and how did you enjoy the spring game?
Danny, let's just start with that. You and I like to gamble a little bit, and I'm a superstitious guy, man. I look at signs. If I'm on my way to a poker game, and I make every light, and I get there, and it's real smooth, and there's no problems, I'm feeling like it's going to be a good day. But if you got problems, you go to Michigan for the spring game, and just before it's raining all morning. Just before kickoff, it's sunny and beautiful. That's a sign, man. It's going to be a good year. But it was a beautiful day. I remember so many spring games as a player. It always seemed to be wet and cold and crummy, but it was a good crowd. I liked the big crowd, Denny, for the young guys. People think it's okay. It's a spring game, but then, I'm thinking we might have had 50,000 people there. What do you think?
They estimated it at 50,000. Yep.
I mean, it was a good crowd. So the guys that have, they've scrimmaged at the stadium many times, some of the young guys, but everything matters in terms of building confidence for a young player. I remember the first time running on the field. Okay, that was something. Warming up on the field. That was something. Okay, getting in a game for the first time. That was something. They got, okay, wow, I got beyond that. But then, that was on a kickoff. Then actually lining up on defense on a play that actually mattered. Or getting in there at mop-up time, that mattered. And then getting in there at a play that actually mattered. So anyway, all those incremental steps, like Bryce Underwood and all these young guys getting reps in front of 50,000 people, it matters. It matters. You build the confidence. You take the stress. The stress level is down. Every rep matters. So I'm really happy that there were a lot of people there, because it helped our football team that there were a lot of people there. Because the old guys don't give a damn. It doesn't mean nothing to them. They've lined up in front of 110 national titles. It don't mean nothing to them. But the young guys, all of that is acclimating, and it's conditioning, and it's getting used to the stress level.
I'm in tune with you. Bryce Underwood had 2 plays that they got called for delay of game, and you can say, well, he'll clean that up. That's some. But all those teams that canceled their spring games, their quarterbacks, they can put them through the paces all they want, their field houses and everything else with, 10 people on the sideline watching and everything. Underwood having to get that play in with, the cameras where millions are recording it to watch it next week, but 50,000 live, with all those eyeballs on them and everything else. Those 2 plays, that's great experience for a 17-year-old. He can practice all the time, get those plays in, but it's a little bit, it hits different. When you're
right, Denny, you're right. High school is different, and he's played in some big time high school games, state championship at Ford Field. But again, every time you get a chance to put a guy under stress, it matters, and it eventually gets him ready for Saturday. But I was down there, Denny, on the 50. You were up there with the big ballers up in the press box. I was down on the 50 with the pride of Youngstown, Jerry DiOrio, and Vinny DeFelice out of Trenton, and then Johnny Wangler. We got so we were just yelling and screaming at each other like it was 1983 again.
Wow!
Oh, he ain't worth a damn. Oh, he's good. Oh, that coach is dumb. Oh no, that coach. It was just flashbacks, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, I love that. I mean, just to be, they say a fly on the wall. I guess to be just somebody sitting down there on the 50, listening to you guys talk about the game. And I can't wait to hear what you had to say, because there was quite a bit to sink your teeth into. Since the spring game, Michigan has already made 2 additions via the portal. We'll tell you about that. Dusty, who was Jim's guy, he was at the game on Saturday. He got some good news today. But we start with the spring game. And all those dignitaries, yourself included, that you were hanging out with there, Scar. What did they say about the prized quarterback, as the game was going on? What did they think of him?
Well, Denny, talking with my buddies, all them guys have coached. It's just that's what a coaching staff. That's what guys. They don't always just agree on everything. Coaches fight and argue and debate. And they, this guy's the guy I should go with. No, you should go with that. That's common. Anyway, we were trying to focus and isolating on different players. But let me just jump right in because we all want to think about, okay, what's the thought on the quarterback, right? Where are we at? We only saw 2 quarterbacks. So let me just say this before I get into the quarterback. A guy asked me, Scar, what do you think about next year? What do you think about the team? Well, my answer to that question, honestly, it would have been different if Mike Keene would have been healthy, rolling, and working through spring practice. The guy that started 22 games for Fresno. Okay, but he didn't. And I don't think the guy got hurt playing football, Danny. And this is my question. Like, these guys get a lot of money. He got a lot of money to come here from Fresno. And, I don't know what he did, but he hasn't played it down in spring football, I don't believe. What the hell did you do, man? I mean, so my question is, how are these contracts written? You do some dumb stuff off the field. I don't know what he did off the field. I'm just guessing. I'm speculating. But it just irritates me that we've had bad luck with some of these, because I think that kid would really that's what I was hoping for. But anyway, he's out. NIL, didn't play, did something dumb, in my opinion, probably off the field. But he's supposed to be ready to play, and let's hope he is. But I just wanted to start with that before I get into Underwood and Davis.
Yeah, well, maybe somebody told me, I don't know if it's true, but I'm going to say it anyway since you're talking about it. Somebody told me he hurt his shoulder lifting weights. Now that would be, that wouldn't be something stupid off the field, but maybe you heard something different. And we'll see. The good news is that Sharon Moore said that last week that he was throwing, and they could have. It sounded like they could have put him in, but right at the tail end of spring practice. Get him in there and have him play.
Okay, because I had heard it. I didn't want to say it out there on public. Since you had heard it, those are some of the things I heard too in the weight room. Okay, and it's just irritating, man.
Yeah,
guys don't get hurt in the goddamn weight room.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess you can, but who knows? I wanted to ask you, Scar, was sitting with all those coaches, and you coach yourself. I liked Chip Lindsey. I've seen a lot of practices where the players are warming up, and you're watching it different than all the other fans that are in there. And the thing that I'm going to say it jumped out to me, but you already mentioned it. There were just 2 quarterbacks. You had Bryce Underwood on one side, and then if you looked on the other side of the 50, there was Jaden Davis, and they were taking all the reps, all the practices, and man, they were throwing a lot of footballs. I mean, it was bam, 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 10-yard out, 10-yard out, 10-yard in, 15-yard out, and it was just a lot of throws, more throws than I've ever seen in any practice at Michigan or any of the pro practices that I'd been with the Lions. So I like that. A lot of
quarterback. Yeah, because it's like we know we're going to be able to run the ball pretty good. And he's got to get these young guys ready, man. I think it was great. Just play the 2 guys that are going to be in the mix and get them every rep you can. This isn't mop up time, man. Those reps, every rep in that scrimmage was important. Anyway, that's my take on him. I'm disappointed. Dumb stuff in the weight room. Should have known better. I'd be furious if I'm sure Sharon Moore was just livid. But that's that. Let's get on to Underwood. Okay. Now here's my take. Okay. I see a big, strong, fast, athletic kid. And Denny, the most impressive thing to me was the short gimme routes, the gimme gifts that you're supposed to be able to complete, the little bubbles, the little 5-yard hitches. They were money. They were locked in. They were accurate. They were confident, accurate passes. You know what I mean? I thought, again, we'll look at the film, and because I'm bullshitting with these guys and I'm watching and we're going, so I didn't see every damn play.
Yeah.
But I saw a hell of a lot of high confidence, accurate laser beams on the high percentage passes that weren't high percentage last year. And I saw slant passes. When you're 6'5", you're going to have less deflected balls. That's one of the great things about having the height. So I saw some good stuff underneath there. So a guy asked me, they didn't have him run. They're not going to have him run. That's going to be one of his big strengths. Predetermined runs are going to be part of the offense. I talk about Notre Dame, that first drive against Ohio State. They ran it 9 times the first drive in the national championship game. In the big games, Bryce Underwood is going to have to run the ball. It's going to be just like JJ. We're going to have to do it, but we want him to go and last 12 football games. So I seriously think he could be our starter game 1. So that's that. But I was really, really pleased with the accuracy of the short passes and the confidence. And again, he's got the pink jersey on, so no one's hitting him. And there was nothing really wide open on any deep passes, but he threw the ball in places that, the ball could have been catchable. He had one dumb pass that looked like there was some miscommunication, something that was picked off. But if somebody asked me, hey, how'd Underwood play? And at the same time asked, well, how'd the secondary play? You know what I mean? Well, the secondary was damn good. There was nobody open on deep passes. We were locked down, great coverage in the secondary. So if somebody asked you, how did Will Howard play against Michigan's defense last year? In Columbus, they scored 10 points. You know what I mean? That's the same damn defense that defended Bryce Underwood. So you've got to really look closely, and you got to put it all in perspective. We're going against a damn good defense, and there were no deep passes that were really that he could have made. You know what I mean? Everything was covered, and so I'm not freaking out that there was no bombs were available, because it's not so much his inability to complete it. There was no real separation there, which isn't terrible that our receivers couldn't get the great separation. But anyway, confidence with the high percentage stuff, and that's that. What else do I have here? They didn't run him. We talked about that. His ability to escape. It appears, we all saw some ability to escape, but then again, Denny, in this kind of scrimmage, the defense is told you don't touch this kid. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So you can't always get a clear idea of how well he will escape, but we know he has the athletic ability to escape. He's got to get bigger and stronger, because we're going to run him, and he's got to get thicker. He's got to get more, in the weight room and just keep getting bigger and stronger. But, he looked real confident. Danny, listen, our offense is going to be this. We're going to run the dang ball. We're going to have a good run game. We have to be able to complete the short passes with high percentage, okay? And then we're going to have the quarterback run in our offense. We're going to get back to shifts and motions and that thing. We got to have our deceptive plays. We got to have some tricks, okay? And we got to throw the ball deep on early downs. Now, looking at Chip, Denny, it's if you looked at our offense, it's hard to really see a big difference. I didn't really see much under center. I'd like to know how many times Bryce or Jaden Davis was under center. I didn't see a ton of fullback behind the quarterback. What would we do in a game? But then again, this is a scrimmage. You're not going to want to show anybody anything. You want to work on your vanilla stuff. Vanilla on defense, vanilla on offense, and just evaluate players. But anyway, I'm confident. I'm confident with where we were with a true freshman. Now let's talk about Jaden Davis. Jaden Davis is a little bigger. He got bigger. He's thicker, stronger. Danny, I think he's an average quarterback. I don't think he's going to give you if the protection breaks down. I think you're not much different than McNamara in terms of what Jaden Davis gives you if the protection breaks down. I always start with accuracy and the ability to avoid, because it's huge as a former defensive player. So Jaden Davis looked average with some of his accuracy. It wasn't overly windy, and he missed some easy passes. He's got average feet. If I'm defending Michigan and he's in the game, I'm just being honest. I'm not overly scared with his ability to make plays, and he's got to get he's got to get thicker and stronger in ability and show the ability to run the damn football and show some toughness too. You got to have quarterbacks who can run the damn football in today's football.
What did everybody say around you about his delivery? What do you?
I don't give a shit about that. That's good enough. Throw an accurate ball. Throw an accurate ball. Avoid the rush. Show toughness. That's kind of where I'm at with him. So I would want to see a great deal of accuracy. And again, he doesn't. His foot speed is what it is. Jaden Davis has to make a living. He for him to be a great quarterback at Michigan and be a good quarterback at Michigan, Denny, he has to be out of the Cade McNamara mindset. I'm not going to throw interceptions. I'm going to secure the football. I'm going to get us in the right play. I'm going to be laser beam accurate. I'm not going to do any dumb stuff. If the pressure comes, I'm going to throw it away, or I'm going to take this. I'm not going to do anything stupid. You know what I mean? For him to be a player at Michigan, he has to be that kind of a quarterback. Bryce Underwood has the ability to make things happen. If you're in a tough game and you're having trouble running the football, Bryce Underwood potentially has the ability to do some things and help you win a football game if it's not there. You know what I mean? If stuff isn't there and you're really grinding to try to find a way to win, like JJ McCarthy did. JJ could take a game and we're having trouble running it. We're having trouble protecting. Next thing you know, JJ stepping up in the pocket, first down. You know what I mean? So I don't see Jaden Davis giving me that. I'm just keeping it real, man. So maybe his feet are going to be a little better. And with live bullets, I don't know, but I think that's where we are with quarterback, Denny. I'd like to see Keene healthy when we get in here. I don't know. They're talking about bringing another kid in. That's why, again, this where you hear me talking, my faith in Jaden Davis is very average at best. And I wanted to have Keene healthy and Underwood slowly working in, getting them ready. That's what my ideal situation. Hopefully Keene will be, full go here within I just read something on our site. He's thrown. He had 2,200 reps in college.
Right.
Mikey Keene. So, missing spring football. But, anyway, that's my take with the quarterback. You want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think they should look in the transfer portal because you don't know about Mikey Keene's health. You know that Davis Warren, that's up in the air when it comes to the injury and him coming back from the knee. And so you got two guys that are question marks because of injury. I agree with you on Jaden Davis. I think that he had a disappointing day. And, thinking about him being even quarterback number 2 would not be something that I would feel good about if I was a Michigan fan. And for everything, Bryce Underwood's still 17. He's got a lot to learn and a lot to go through. But, I really liked, again, with Lindsey, how he pretty much just opened up the book and he was firing the ball all over the place. They got down on the red zone. He tried a back shoulder over to the left. He tried some, I don't know if it was a back shoulder or a jump ball. It was like in the middle of the end zone, but over by the sideline. You don't see a lot of those throws, but he lasered one over there. Browder, I think the DB got his hand in there and played it well. There was another, Scar, that was my favorite throw. He missed. It was a 30 or 40-yard bomb to Browder down the sideline. And, I mean, those the top-tier quarterbacks in the NFL – have a hard time he put the ball within a window of like 2 feet. Browder almost had it. I can't wait to see that one on the film. I don't even know if they showed a replay, but just throwing those passes.
Right. He was throwing the ball in positions where only his guy could get it. You have to look closely at that stuff. That's why, I don't give a damn about the stats so much because there was damn good coverage. Our secondary is well coached.
I agree. The secondary.
The OG down there is the real deal, man. So,
and I wonder, Shannon Goodwin did. I don't know. You might have missed this one. He uncorked a 62-yard bomb, and Shannon Goodwin had at least a couple steps on, and he was just crossing the goal line, and Underwood threw it almost out of the back of the end zone. But it was 62 yards. It was long. If you're going to miss it long. And look, JJ didn't connect on one of those deep passes. until his 11th game as a starter. So it's not like I'm saying, oh, it means he sucks. He just, he didn't hit that. I also think, speaking of Wink and the Michigan defense, they have watched Underwood all spring long and even in the bowl practices, and they may have been backing up because all of that stuff that was underneath that he was just peppering those wide receivers, and he looked really good. I mean, they were there as available, and some of them were 2, 3, but 5, 6, 10 yards. I mean, he was peppering those out there. Those DBs, it doesn't matter what's going on, but if you've seen that quarterback and he has the ability to hit the long ball, you're given a little cushion there. And I wonder if that was going on. And one thing, Scar, he didn't run, and they were calling virtual sacks and everything in the game. He did one time make a shifty run. He reversed field, and he took off and then cut out for 17 yards. The athletic ability, the footwork there, silky smooth, shifty run. I liked it. I saw that, and I thought, all right, noted, from Bryce.
Yeah, Danny, that's the stuff that is going to put fear into you as a defensive player and coach. Because if I'm playing defense against Michigan and Jaden Davis is in the game, that means one thing. If Underwood's in the game, that's a whole different deal.
Yeah.
But my pass rush lanes, my whole thought process is different. Stepping up in the pocket, so that's where we're at. But I totally agree with
coach, like you, all of you guys that are the coaches in the spring ball. That one pass that was down, they were going to the south end zone, and Underwood went back, and it was like a 10-yard maybe a little bit of slant, but it was Joe Taylor, who's 5'9", and he threw it to him. And it's just a perfect ball, but the DB might have got his hand in there. Taylor, if that's Klein, or if that's McCulley, or if that's somebody that's 6'2", 6'3", I mean, that's taking candy from a baby. I can see Underwood make it, but you're probably not going to put a 5'9" receiver running that route. You're going to put a bigger guy who could use his body, just like for Jaden Davis. He threw a 20-yard jump ball down on the goal line to Samaj Morgan. That's not how you use Samaj Morgan, but it's a spring game. So maybe they're like, all right, Samaj, you want to go down there and get a jump ball down on the goal line? We'll call one for you. I wouldn't want him I wouldn't want to see that in a real game.
Anyway, I thought, you want to take advantage of these reps in that kind of environment and throw the damn ball, let your quarterback get some game reps. But you just, it's just interesting how people see things different. I'm sitting next to Wangler, that's a good run by such and such. I'm like, what do you mean that's a good run? That's a dummy idiot. Let the ball outside the defense, some guy in deep. So John sees it from an offensive guy's perspective. I'm seeing it from why the hell's the ball getting outside the defense? I'm yelling at number such and such. It's just funny. Looking at that. But Denny, I was really looking at our inside guys. I think this is the biggest thing on the defense is there's no Mason Graham and there's no Kenny Grant, and we've been so damn good in there. And I'm going to throw out, Pierce. I'm not sure of which all of them played.
Yeah.
But that is going to be a big position that we're going to continue to look at. I want to get the film. We'll have the film here within a couple of weeks. But 54, the big kid, Poly is a big, thick, Denny, you're going to play 1 and 3 technique. I coached the number one thing you got to do if you're going to play where Mason Graham and Kenny, the number one thing a kid has to be able to do, or he cannot play there, he has to play the double team.
Yeah.
He has to be able to play a double team as a 1 technique and a 3 technique. If you're playing between the center and guard and whatever, you got to be big, strong, tough, fast, athletic, low enough to handle, 700 pounds of dude trying to move you. And he can definitely do that. And he showed some athleticism running down some plays. And I think he's athletic enough. He could. I'm going out. I'm jumping in here early. Poly potentially is going to be a guy that he could be a starter in 2 years. Okay. He's a kid that showed me something. So I took a good look at him. What else? I got a list here. No rhyme or reason order. I want to finish up with Chip. I did not see fullback in there. Denny's in the scrimmage. People have to understand this in that type of a scrimmage. Defense has a huge advantage. huge advantage when Michigan, when you scrimmage your own team. I don't care who the hell you are, high school, college, the defense has an advantage because you know your plays, you know the stances, the splits, you know the cadence of the quarterback, you just know everything. You know the audibles, the calls, the dummy calls. You know stuff. So to be able to move the ball at all when in the run game is significant, and trying to pass the ball is going to be difficult. So people have to understand that and not get we couldn't move the ball. That's a bunch of BS. We're going against a damn good defense that sees you for 15 practices. They know everything you're doing. Defense has a huge advantage. So let's forget about that. Danny, what else do I got before I get? I'm going to just go through my little roster and look at some names that I thought were of significance. Earls is the real deal, number 2. I see what Wink likes. Did you focus on him at all, the young secondary kid? He's a big, athletic, tough kid. I totally understand what Wink is talking about. He's going to get clock as a true freshman. So number 2 could be something real special, a real deal type kid. We hit the jackpot with him.
I agree with you on him. There's not as much in pass coverage where you're, hoping that where he's going to excel. I mean, he was out there. They had him out on an island. So looking at the tape will be interesting, especially when they had the one free play and he committed the penalty. Did he do that because he knew it was a free play or he got to be or whatever else? But there was one series on back-to-back plays, I believe, where he came in and he stopped the run and he looked good doing it. I mean, he came in, swept the guy's feet out. The other time he put his shoulder into him. I liked what I saw from 2 in the run game.
Yeah, so TJ guy's got a new number. He's solid. Again, I'm just so confident with our edge players. And Nichols is everything that we've talked about. He was a guy that they liked as a true freshman. And so we have 4 really good players. We don't have all 4 of them are big guys, though, Danny. We've always had one guy that was, maybe a guy that was a little – because you got to have a drop guy. But Winkle I understand what Wink does. You may not see as many edge players dropping as much if you've got 4 bigger dudes and you just go traditional and you have more linebacker drops and you don't do as much of it unless they can show that they can do it. But Nichols is a 250-pound kid, but all 4 of our guys are going to be really good playing the run. What are some other names I had here? Danny, 82 is a young guy I have on my list.
Amarian Stewart?
Edge player.
Oh, okay.
I watched him. He's a true freshman.
I got to bring
82 is Devin Baxter.
Okay, yep.
Okay, he was a highly recruited kid, and we haven't seen his name much. He kind of showed me something out there. He's a kid that, we're going to be losing more. We're going to be losing TJ Guy. So I'm always looking at the next year, Danny. That's the old coach in me. I'm trying to find. That's why I brought up Paulapali. I'm finding the guy who's the 2026 backup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who's that guy? Because coach is always looking. You got to stay ahead of the game, man. And that kid showed me some things. He's a big athletic kid. That was something I saw there. 42. Everybody talked about him. I saw it right away before he started making catches, though. I was watching this kid block because even Sean Moore talked about him. What the hell's 42's name?
Jalen Hoffman.
Okay. I was high on the kid before he caught a ball in that scrimmage. Okay. Because, I was talking to Jerry and John, we're going back and forth about, I want tight ends that can block. Because these guys, I want 2 tight ends in the game, Danny, that I have to fear. Because we're much more difficult to defend. Michigan is defensively when you got 2 tight ends, one on the left, one on the right, that can both block. You got it? I don't want an imposter in the game that just catches the ball. So that kid's a tough kid. McCullough's the real deal, the receiver. You saw that. I was standing on that sideline when he went up and made a catch.
McCulley, yeah, Donovan McCulley, yep.
The kids, it's what we needed. he's a guy that'll make a play when there's nothing there. You know, it'll be just give him a chance, throw it up there. He's the real deal. He's a big, tall, athletic kid. Danny, I don't know if I tell you, sometimes, you know, you look at a team, and I mean, it's obvious that when Rich Rodriguez took over the team, he was bigger on smaller players. He wanted his strength coach right away. Let's lose weight. Let's get faster. Well, he wanted everybody leaner. You know, that's just his philosophy. It is what it is. I've been coming to, you know, watching Michigan along, you know, watching this team and these players. I don't know if it's me. I'd like to know, but it looks like the kids are thicker. It's like Sharon told the strength coach, you know, I want my team a little bit bigger. I want everybody a little bigger and thicker, and maybe a little more emphasis on let's carry a little more weight. You follow me? And instead of maybe we'll compromise a little bit of speed, but I don't know if it was just me looking at them. And just sometimes those are coaching philosophies. You know what I mean?
I would say that, you know, after the game, I was listening to Jordan Marshall, the running back, and somebody was asking him, hey, you know, the difference between last year's team and this year's team. And he didn't say weight gain, but he said, our defense are big hitters and they're tough. And it's really been an emphasis of just being, you know, big and strong. I mean, he mentioned that. So, you know, big and strong. I don't have to get the exact quote from him, but what you're talking about, it kind of reminded me of what he was saying.
Yeah, I listen. Our running back room, it was solidified to me that we are going to be every kid's going to be a physical kid. I think that we put on the field as a running back. So that was pretty obvious to me. There'll be some transfers. I got to believe we're going to hear some names this week of some kids that are going to leave. You know, that didn't perform as well as they would hope in that scrimmage, and maybe had a talk with them. But, you know, it'll be so much better when we can look at the film and really slow it down and evaluate some of these kids. You know, big Kanka. I was trying to zoom in on some of the true freshmen. Was it Bobby Kanka from Howell? You know, he's a big lumbering kid. You know, he could be, you know, he could be, I'm trying to compare him to somebody, but he's got, you know, he's definitely got the size and the strength and the toughness.
Chase Winovich?
Oh, no, he's a much bigger kid than him. He's an inside kid. He's a 200, looks like he's about a 280-pound kid now. But, you know, he's in there battling, and you see size and you see toughness and you see athletic ability. So, you know, he's just a young kid, man. He's supposed to be in high school right now.
Right.
So we recruited good players. It was a great scrimmage. Come out healthy, physical. We are big, strong, and physical, both sides of the ball. Kick game looked good.
Yeah, the punter did good. Hauling back.
But I don't know, Danny. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Well, if anybody has any questions, let's look at some.
Listen, I think we win against a real damn good defense, and we're going against our players we're going to, every time you line up, either offense or defense, you're going against damn good players. You know, iron sharpens iron, man. So, you know, either side of the ball you're on, you know, I keep hearing Jordan Marshall talk about how good our defense is. Well, trust me, our defense is benefiting going against some tough dudes on offense. You know, I was a young freshman going against Ed Moransky, Bubba Paris, Kurt Becker. Those are names people don't remember, but you know, you get pounded around by those type of dudes when you're a freshman. You develop you got no choice but to develop. So that's what's good about you know, you have you got 100 great football players pounding on each other every day in practice. You got no choice to get better, or you're not going to survive. But
we'll get some of those questions in. I want to tell you, you know, people like 5 stars. We got a 5-star recruiting analyst now that's just been hired over the Maize and Blue Review. You like recruiting? It's nonstop. It's happening. A great time to get in now that the spring game is over. Look to the next year. It is recruiting time of year. Join up with the Maize and Blue Review today by going to michigan.rivals.com. When I say recruiting, of course, that's high school, but also with the transfer portal that is going on. and it is even hot right now as we get through it. And we'll get a recap on Underwood. Here's the two guys that Michigan just brought in since Saturday. The running back from UMass and who also played at Western Michigan is named C.J. Henderson, 5'11", 195. He has 2 years of eligibility left, so we'll see if how he figures in the running back room. And also Michigan today gets another running back via the transfer portal named John Volker. He's a 6 foot, 210 pounder from Princeton. He has 1 year of eligibility left. So, and earlier they had picked up a punter. So they have here in the spring portal, the punter was from Missouri. They have picked up 3 players, 2 running backs and a punter, and maybe a left tackle, maybe a quarterback. I think that is if it comes together and they find the right guy and it meshes up, I wouldn't be surprised to see them get whether it's a depth or a starter at left tackle and a depth at quarterback.
I'll tell you another name that I did isolate on. The coaches are high on Ophibi 55 guard.
Yep.
And he is a big Danny. One of the biggest dudes I've ever seen at Michigan was Michael Onwenu.
Yeah,
that is a large man. That is a wide, large dude. Ophibi is in that mold. He is a wide, big, thick, strong kid, and he showed some athleticism and toughness. And another kid I was zooming in on that I really liked, and I liked him as a high school kid. He should be in high school right now. Is Avery Gatch. Avery Gatch he was highly recruited out of Birmingham Groves. So keep your eye on him. He shows toughness. He shows athleticism. And I think he's a kid that he's going to have a good career at Michigan. So what else do I have? I talked about all them guys. Denny, some other things. You got any? What's this? Some other things going on in football. The NCAA is talking about getting rid of 150 rules. It's supposed to be coming out later today or tomorrow. So I'll be interested to see what those rules are. Which 150 rules they're going to get rid of. I wanted to talk about Mike DeBord. Aaron Terenzi piping in. Go Blue, Coach Scar. Aaron's a loyal listener.
All right,
Aaron. I want to talk about Mike DeBord, Denny. Mike DeBord, I got to know Mike. Great offensive line coach. I think he was the OC in '97, right? Offensive line coach. And
he was the offensive coordinator.
I worked the camp for so many years. I got to know all them guys, and I worked with Mike. Spent a whole week with him, and he's just a great dude, man. Just a good coach. I worked with that guy, Denny, at the camp, and normally the big time, the Michigan you got 150 college coaches, you got 150 high school coaches, you've got 4,000 kids from all over the country. And you got some kids that couldn't start for the high school team that are at this camp. They're kids. They go to a camp. They're not very good, some of them. Mike DeBord, he's coaching that kid that can hardly walk and chew gum the same way he's coaching that 5-star kid that he's trying to recruit his butt off. I mean, that's like that's something to coach at that camp. A kid that he ain't trying to recruit him. He's just how he is as a coach. He was a good man. He recruited a bunch of my kids when he was at Central Michigan. So rest in peace, Mike. I love the guy. I got to know him. He was more than a good coach. He was a great guy. And there's no surprise he got to be the head coach at Central Michigan. It didn't work out like a lot of our Michigan guys went there. I think John Milligan went there. I think Jason Carr went with them, was on that staff. All those guys used to come to my school. I knew them all at the camp. Anyway, Mike's gone. Loved him. Great guy. Any thoughts on him?
Yeah, he just recently passed away. My Mike DeBord story is that one time when I was working on the radio in Ann Arbor, he came on and he had said that he was talking and he said that a punt was a good offensive play. And for like 2 weeks, we had people calling in and saying, Mike, DeBord's the most conservative. He's the worst offense. So I saw him in the street about a week or two after that. And I said, hey, coach. And I just introduced myself to him. And I said, hey, I got to thank you. You know, you said that the punt was the good offensive play. And people have been calling in nonstop after that. You know, I've great job filling up the phone lines. He said, well, just so everybody. So he's taking the time in the street to tell me, he's like, any play that ends in a kick is good. You're not turning it over. He's right. Like, you're either kicking an extra point, but also, you know, if you're punting, and, you know, that's the thing with the fans, is like a punt is a good offensive play, you know, so he doubled down on it in the street with me. And, you know, his point is that, you know, if it's ending in a kick, you're not turning it over.
Instead of 3rd and 12 throwing an interception, you know, if he's not open, throw it in the stands and punt the damn ball. You probably should have elaborated a little more for some of the idiots out there.
Yeah, but it was nice that here he was.
I understand.
I was telling him kind of as a throwaway, kind of just for fun and everything. But he said,
he took the time.
He did. He took the time and
explained. He saw you, a guy with a Michigan hat. He said, let me talk to this guy. You know what I mean? Great guy. How about this JUCO rule, Denny? They're not counting that toward eligibility. So you got guys going to play 7-8 years of college football. You got a kid. I saw they got a kid. He played 5 years of college football. Some of it was at major college football. He wants another year. It's crazy what's going on with these kids because they want to capitalize on this NIL money. So that'll be interesting to see where that goes.
I'm all right with that.
Danny, one other thing. Lee Corso is retiring from ESPN.
Right.
When you're a young guy, we're all young football guys. You're fighting, you're battling. You get your first letter from a college. Now, I was getting some letters as a sophomore, and, you know, Elma and Olivet and maybe Wayne State or this, that, or whatever. Then I got some Eastern Michigan, and my coach, I never forget this. He calls me in. It was like before a game. He's like, here, come on, come into my office. He gives me this letter. It's got Indiana. Okay, my name is Jim Scarcelli. Indiana football, Tom Sorelli. Tom Sorelli. My coach says, I think this is for you. Anyway, I open up the letter. You know, dear Tom, we really want you, Coach Lee Corso. So anyway, my point is that was my first letter from a big time program, and my name was misspelled, but it was from Lee Corso. Needless to say, I never went to Indiana, but that's my Lee Corso story.
I like it. I thought you were going to tell me that Lee Corso was responsible for, you know, one of the great plays in Michigan history was the Wengler to AC, and what how did that go? The play before they threw the ball, and, you know, I don't know, was Corso over there on the sideline or whatever?
Yeah, you were right to him. Reed, right. I think it was it.
I hear that story all the time. You know, when it comes to Lee Corso in Michigan, I know he really liked Bo, Lee Corso. So I know that.
Oh, I love listening to him. But yeah, anyway, that was there's little things that motivate you as a young guy getting recruited, and when you get a letter from somebody and they have no idea what the hell your name is, that's like all extra motivation, you know, to work a little harder. But yeah, being at that scrimmage, Denny, reminded me of being a high school coach. Is like, you know, you as a high school coach, you go to games and you're just watching. You don't always have your film of it. You got to try to size stuff up. You got your little notepad out there and you're sizing up what a team does. And I didn't see a whole lot different of what we're going to do, Denny. We're going to run our power. We're going to pull some guards. We're going to run our zone, and we got to have backside tight ends that can block. And that, you know, I talked about 42. He showed me some toughness. We got to have guys that can block at that position. And but I don't see a big difference in really the foundation of what we are offensive. If I had to line up and defend Michigan, you know, I think we are what we are, Denny. You know, there was one of the guys said it a couple of weeks ago that he didn't think nothing much changed at all with Michigan. You know, we'll see. Hopefully, I want to see shifting and motions and stuff to fool people too with the great foundation.
Yeah, and, you know, as far as Underwood goes, it doesn't this is what isn't even a knock. He wasn't impressive throwing the ball down the field and making all these wild plays. It was like, to me, going to a baseball game and seeing a big slugger, and he might hit a single or two, and then he hits the long fly balls foul. He didn't hit the home run. He's capable, and the degree of difficulty on some of the throws, it's going to be a work in progress for him there. I was encouraged that they allowed him to.
Denny, you think Tom Brady could have completed some of those passes? I don't think so. People were covered, man. It's just like it's just what you're talking about. I know I interrupted you there, but it's just like you just got done talking about Mike DeBord. Those people were covered. Our secondary was locked down. If there's anything, it's like, okay, let's try to get some separation again. But go ahead. That's just my take on the coverage on our receivers.
Well, whether it's fair or unfair, Tom Brady came in, the first pass he ever threw was against UCLA, and it went for a pick six. So, and that was already, he had already been playing a lot of football. This kid's 17 years old. That's the one. J.J. McCarthy, he didn't hit a deep ball until his 11th start. This kid's 17 years old. Not going to turn 18 till mid-August. So they were overall, if you were saying evaluating the spring game and trying to put it in the context, no, he didn't really wow. Yeah, he's big, strong, shifty, can throw the ball and all those things, but he didn't really make any wild plays. He peppered the wide receivers underneath, and he got lost on one, threw the ball late over the middle. That's a no-no. But he's the age part, he's going to get a lot better next month. And then, by August the 30th, and I don't think he'll even be close to the player when they go to USC that he is if he starts the first game. He's probably going to be 2-3 times better then. So all of that is going to help him.
Game 4, Danny, that's when it clicked for me.
All right. Okay.
First start, I was straight up terrible, the worst player to ever play. Game 2, I was not very good. Game 3, I was below average. Game 4, I was kind of decent. So that's when we go to Nebraska. That's when we want him up and running and rolling, if he's the guy. But lot to be confident about. We are a big, strong, tough team with a lot of good football players. You're going to play 12 games, championship game, and make that long run. You got to have depth. You got to have 70 guys that can play, man.
Riley asking who the third string quarterback is behind Davis. I think Davis is, if I had to say what the depth chart is right now, it is Underwood. I would say it's Mikey Keene. Then it's Jaden Davis. And then Chase Herbstreit is coming in. And he would be the fourth. And we don't know how Davis Warren, if he's going to be ready to go for the start of the season, where he fits in, who they might or may not get in the transfer portal. There was a quarterback from Iowa whose dad played was offensive line at Michigan. Might have been around when you played, Scar. So Sullivan, I think his name is. I don't remember exactly his name, but
that kid was a decent player for Iowa. He's an athletic kid. He runs around.
Well, there was some interest there. I don't know if he ended up somewhere. They missed out on him, but they're looking. So they're looking to add something into the quarterback.
Hey, just another thing I just saw before we went on. I heard Nico is going to UCLA. Okay.
Right.
And the article indicated he took a big pay cut, that he's only getting $1.5 million at UCLA. Okay, he wanted $4 million from Tennessee. He's going to UCLA. They're saying $1.5 million. I don't believe it, though. I think UCLA is telling people that because they don't want to be looking like the guy that anteed up. I highly doubt the kid's only getting $1.5 million. I believe that was. I think a lot of these negotiations are done before the kid ever puts a gun to somebody's head and said, say, give me my money. I think he already has that offer, unless he's got a dumb agent.
Well, it looks like he does have a dumb agent, but I'm with you. We can't really. You get a lot of everybody wants to say that he was a big dummy for leaving. It is bad for college football, and look at you're going to have to take it. Really didn't work out for you. We don't really know that. It's like these NIL numbers. And Scar, what if somebody asked you how much you think Bryce Underwood got to come to Michigan? Well, what do you say?
I'm just going by what I hear. That hopefully it's a, it's a $10 million 4-year deal. Hopefully that's what it is.
And 12, right?
Yeah, I want something that is just like when Bo came to my house and talked to my old man and my mom. He said, hey, he's got 4 if he needs 5 to get it to graduate. I can honor that. That's what I will honor. And that's what the old man told my dad, and nothing more, nothing less. So if hopefully that we get to the point where whatever we agreed upon with some of these guys, if it's 10 million with Bryce Underwood, he said, listen, this is what you get. This is what you got. If you're a Heisman Trophy winner, you still get your 10 million. If you ain't worth a damn, you still get your 10 million.
Well, that's the interesting part. Let's just say, so that's $2.5 million a year. He's going to get $2.5 million now.
Whatever the hell they agreed to that there would be.
Next year at this time, he gets 2.5. And let's say that Michigan makes the playoff. Let's say that Michigan goes to the national championship game. He is out there. So he's still got $5 million left in his contract. 2.5 as a junior, 2.5 as a senior. And a team comes out there and says, we'll give you $6 million for 1 year.
I understand that. But what if he ain't worth a damn? What if he's a bust, Denny?
Well, right. I mean, that's the thing, that he'll still get that money.
That's why you would hope. Because, again, I played with 5-star guys recruited by everybody that never played down. I played with guys that were the night before signing day, got the phone call, and they were all Americans. So, you know what I mean? That's why I'd like to see that there's some kind of this is what it is, and we stand by it. So if things work out that you're a great player, you get your 10 million. If you struggle, then you still get your 10 million. But I don't know that that's where we are, man. It sounds like it's I don't know. I just like to see. I remember how I remember what my dad always said. Bo said to him, it was like, hey, I'm going to honor this. You kids, whether he's worth a damn or not, I'm going to honor that.
Yeah, right. Well, the system that is in place, guys are always free agents at the end of the year. Even though they have their contracts, they can break them and go somewhere else. So hopefully it sounds, like if I had to guess that if he really was talking about Bryce Underwood that good, that Michigan would come back and say, hey, if you really want more money, we'll give it to you. And it's not going to be a situation like Iyama Liava where he's got to sit out of practice and then he's, high-tailing it. But, you never know. That kind of thing. I got one more thing for you, Scar, and it comes from Dusty. But you didn't get a chance to talk to Dusty? You were up in the
No, I had to talk with him before, though. I told you what I said to Dusty. I don't know if I told this to our fans, but when I shook Dusty's hand, I just wanted to wish him luck, and I told him, I said, Coach, I could say that. I said, Coach, the greatest thing that I've heard you say that I like more than anything is that you ain't afraid to talk about your love for Bobby effing Knight. That's exactly how I said it to him. And he gave me a big hug, and we started our conversation off right there. And he appreciated that I was, because, a lot of people are afraid to talk about Bobby Knight, man. Sometimes it ain't politically right. And he didn't give a damn. That's his guy, man. That's who he worked for.
It's because the general was an asshole. So that's
what I said. He don't give a damn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Denny, he worked with them. He developed them. And in your opinion, he's an asshole. Not in my opinion, and not in Dusty's opinion. And we can beat that up all day long. But let's get on to, you got my man here's picture.
Yeah, that is Namari Burnett. And he announced today that he's coming back.
All right.
So you got Namari Burnett. One thing could be true. Both things could be true. He could be a great coach, and he can be really mean-spirited and have anger management issues. I think actually both of those things were true. And Bob Knight, if I was when I was in high school, if I was good enough to play, I would have gone to play for Bobby Knight. But that doesn't mean he didn't have big-time anger management issues and was a jerk to people that was younger that were. And look down.
You call it, listen, I get it. We've got the incident where he grabbed the kid, but you call it anger management. I call ripping a kid love.
What do you call taking a potted plant and throwing it at your secretary, Scar? What do you call when somebody comes up and says something and you start screaming and biting their head off?
This kid. I'm telling you, I was coached hard. I coach guys hard. I get it. I'm not going to get into all the little things, but I know.
Well, those weren't little things. Those were public, and people said he verbally abused them. He was an asshole. Oh, that's all. Great coach.
I get you. But I was a hard coach. I was coached hard, and I made mistakes. Some of my coaches went over the line at times, and it is what it is. I got to get you ready, man. Denny, Bo used to say, man, I got to get you ready to play in front of 105. And so I'm going to come at you hard. You got to be, if you can't handle the mental toughness that I'm going to be in your face on, you ain't going to handle 105 on national television.
Well,
So that's the mentality.
I got to give you this, Scar, even though that he had issues and never took care of him because, he big timed everyone. I did like it when he was there in Indiana, and he said something to the effect is, I hope they bury him upside down so everybody can kiss his ass or something like that. He did say something like that. So
anyway, that's good. It's Burnett's back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Scar's going to throw a potted plant at Denny. That's okay. Yeah, maybe one day, Denny. But anyway, that's great news for Dusty.
I wouldn't turn you in, Scar. I'd be all about it. It would be okay.
Yeah, that's called love, Denny. Getting your butt kicked ripped is love. That's how I used to call it. You're getting some love.
Yeah, if he's not yelling at you, then you should.
Then you got problems. When they quit yelling, that's so true. Because I felt that as a coach, man. It's like after a certain point, if you can't push this guy's buttons and he's not getting any better, you know what, man. You're just, it is what it is. I can't help it. We got what we got.
Let me recap. Just getting back to the beginning here. No, not throwing chairs across the court. We're talking about Underwood. So all of the former Michigan players around you, they're like, they think Underwood's going to be the starter. That's what they.
Oh, I don't know. You'll get Jerry Friday and John. We were all over the place. Maybe John will come on with you again. But John went through it, and he knows how much he has to learn and develop. I'm not going to speak for John, but there was a lot of good vibes. I gave you my feel of them. That I have, Denny. The greatest thing I saw him do was throw 5-yard outcuts with laser beam accuracy. Okay, so if I'm defending Michigan, and you got this bitch run game, that I got I got to focus on your run game. Okay, I gotta stop your freaking giving the ball. I can't let you give the ball to 23 and run it down my throat. So that's where people are going to start. And then every now and then you have Underwood keep the ball on the quarterback keep with his speed. You have to honor that, which will open up the defense. Okay, you have to have quarterback run. Jaden Davis ain't giving that to me. I want quarterback run that can open things up. And now, okay. You've got to have a pass game to back people off and make people honor some of that stuff. And we were not a high percentage team for some of the easy passes last year, the easy stuff. On first down, you'd like to be able to throw if they're giving you a big cushion. You like to be able to do. He was laser beam accurate with that, so that was like wow. I love that. And then we got all the shifting and all the other stuff with good coaching to create problems, to create adjustment problems. And we got receivers that can, and then get the deep ball going. It looks like Chip and Sharon talked about it. That's why he brought him in. How can I create problems for the defense adjusting to get the vertical game going? And it's, there's a lot involved with it, but you gotta make them fear your run game. And then the pass game.
It was something that you said earlier, how much the defense has the advantage over the offense. And the offensive line, you have to have your 5 guys working in continuity and gelling. That's why the offensive line, you're not rotating them in there. And they split that squad up.
Yeah, but that's the same thing on defense, too.
I know. Well, it's not the same.
Trust me.
Okay, I'm telling you, I would think that it would be more important for the offense to have 5 starters to work with. And so if that's going to be
I hear that.
A little bit. The other thing I thought
they're at practice all day with each other, man. Those fit. They got 20 of them. Practice for 15 practices. They practice together. They make calls. They work. He rotates guys in and out. You get in there with that group. They're all communicating.
Right. No, that's right. That's what makes it spring. And I think the other thing that makes it spring here is that, you had Fred Moore that dropped one. It didn't look very good. But if I had to guess who Michigan's 2 top targets are going to be, I think it's going to be David McCulley, and Bryce Underwood did not have the luxury of throwing the ball to him. And I think Hogan Hansen would probably be number 2. He certainly would be in the top 3, wherever he's at. He did not have those guys at his disposal, but I liked how Lindsey was making him throw. The degree of difficulty of the throws, even though he didn't connect on them, he was throwing them. You're throwing a 35-yarder down the field that has to be put in a 2-foot window to a wide receiver out of bounds, and you just miss it. I mean, to me, that's an ooh and ah. I can't wait to see the film on that one, actually, to look at it. And some of those red zone throws, throwing a 5'10" guy that isn't boxing out his guy, and anybody else that's an easy touchdown that's taking candy from a baby. Some of those other throws to Browder and over on the other side to Marsh, those look like that the DBs just made good plays. So he didn't really connect on a whole lot.
That's why, I heard the media talking about some throw on a trick play, Well, that's whatever. But you want it. That's what you want your offense.
What you think of the trick play?
It's good. That stuff is good. I like trick plays that are off of stuff you run. They're not, totally exotic. They look like plays you run that fool people. I like stuff that fools the defense, and so that's all good. But let me just say this, because I hear a lot of these offensive linemen say, "Oh, I got to play with that dude, and we got to be together all year long, and I don't want nobody else in there." But trust me, defensive players too. Denny, when you run stunts, you get a feel for the guy next to you, your communication. I'm dropping, I'm rushing. You got to contain. I got to contain. I'm going to bounce it out. The feel for how you run your stunts together. Everybody's different. So, there's a part of that defensively too, where you get a feel for the guy next to you and how you're communicating things.
Yeah, and I've always had somebody that told me that went to Michigan that the spring game, you don't take a whole lot out of it in terms of the quarterbacks, because those guys know that they're not going to get hit. It's a totally different ball game when you got guys coming at you that are trying to rip your head off and throw you into the ground. So there's that part too. So it's spring. We watched it. It's exciting. Great to look at the film. I can't wait over the next weeks or even months that we'll go through and look at some of the plays out there and get us ready for the season. But I like the degree of difficulty of the throws that were given out there for Underwood, even though he didn't necessarily connect on them. So that was me.
And another thing, watching our team, Denny, I got to give this back. This goes back to Harbaugh, though. And I understood this playing for Bo. What we do on both sides of the ball, what we do, it prepares both sides of the ball to play anybody and everybody in the country for what they do offensively. We got enough spread stuff, tight end stuff for whoever the hell we play in the Big Ten to get our defense ready. And we do enough exotic stuff defensively to get our offense ready for any kind of stuff they're going to see. You follow me? So we both, and I get that gets back to Harbaugh, and Sharon is just repeating it, that everything that we did in that scrimmage helps both sides of the ball.
Well, you mentioned him early, Jerry Diorio. Shout out to Jerry. Jerry said, I don't know if he was getting some inside information, but I said, Jerry, for as long as I've watched Michigan football, the first play is going to be some kind of power off tackle up the middle, because that's Michigan's bread and butter. That's what they're going to do. And Jerry said, I think Underwood's going to drop back and throw a bomb. And I thought, Jerry, come on, you're playing to the crowd. But that is exactly what Underwood did. Now he ended up getting a virtual sack. Rayshon Benny got him for a virtual sack, but I think that he was looking to throw the ball deep on that first play. So good. There you go.
Well, I said it. You have to be able to, when you line up against Michigan, there has to be a little bit of fear that they might go for the bomb and let it rip. There has to be. Otherwise, they can just load up on your short routes and try to stop your run game. And, Chip knows what he's doing.
You think so?
We're going to find out, man. But we got good players. We got good coaches. And we get Keene back. And, there's an upside. There's an upside to him being out. Underwood got more reps. Davis got more reps. So there's an upside to it.
There you go.
For those 15 practices, they didn't have to share any reps with somebody else. So,
Scar, keep that same enthusiasm all throughout the summer. It was great to have you on here talking about what you saw on Saturday.
Yeah, once we get the film, we'll get a good breakdown, man. Me and Jerry will break it down.
The only thing I wish is that when I looked up on the big screen, that would have been great if they would have, had a picture of all those guys at the 50 right around there. That would have been great.
Oh, you talking about all the old washed up guys?
No, all the coaches and stuff, and you. I was talking about. I wanted to see, you guys up on the screen. That would have been.
Oh, good. Yeah, we're all gray-haired, washed-up dudes, man.
Well, we're
talking about glory days, man. Glory
days. There it is. All right, Scar.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Go Blue.
There he is, Jim Scar.